Hello and welcome back to my show. It's Monday again and I've done words today and wrapped up presents for my niece's birthday and made a card. So there's been lots going on. The writing this morning was on three different projects, which is very pleasing to dip in and do a bit here and a bit there and a bit of a proposal here and some actual fictional scenes here. But to move all those things on, just a touch of the dial, is very pleasing. First of all today, a tiny book haul, but a really wonderful one. 2 books that have come in the post in the past few days, both from writing friends with novels out. And I've been sent copies of new books to read and talk about. This is A Picture Perfect Christmas by Liam Livings. I've read Liam Livings before, and I've read books published in his other name, which I forget. That's annoying. He writes gay romantic comedies, rom-coms, and this is this year's Christmas book, which I'm looking forward to. There's no blurb on this on the back telling us, because it's a preview copy, which I'm lucky to get. There's a little letter with it, just asking for a nice review. How nice to get a kind of proper letter with somebody's novel. That's very traditional, isn't it, in a way? It's very old-fashioned and sweet to get this. Yeah, a proper hard copy book with a letter attached. So I'm looking forward to this, something a bit Christmassy in the summer. Picture Perfect Christmas by Liam Livings. Then the third in a series by Brendan Nash. Now Brendan is doing this series. I think it's a trilogy, which will see this finishing the whole thing. This is a story of Weimar Berlin, the artistes. What does it say on the back? There's a quote from me on the back. I have been thoroughly enjoying this tale of an apartment building on the Nollendorfstrasse in the 1920s. It's Isherwood's sexy, tawdry world, but presented with a hint of Maupin's soapy brio. That was me a few years ago when I read the first book in this series. Was it The Landlady? Was the first one. I get mixed up. They're all set around the location and the time of Christopher Isherwood's Berlin books. And Brendan Nash is an expert on that time and that place, because he's the person that does the guided walking tours around Berlin, exploring those areas. I've not been on these yet, but I feel as if I have by following him on social media. And so a few years ago, when the first one came out, I snapped it up and bought multiple copies for friends and of the sequel as well. And now the third one is here. It must be about 5 years ago that I first read Brendan, but I loved that book. This one, it says Berlin 1928-29. The Artistes is the third in the acclaimed Landlady series and finds the residents of Nollendorfstrasse 17 facing unprecedented challenges. The book opens in the autumn of 1928. The reality of far-right politics is no longer just an annoying background buzz. It's a vicious daily reality that impacts on everyone's lives. For the residents of Nollendorfstrasse and their friends and loved ones, life is fracturing. For them, as for many, Berlin's theatres, concert venues, variety halls and cinemas provide a welcome escape from an uncertain world. Who is prepared to stand up and defend hard-won freedoms? Who are trying to help others who are under attack? Who are just in it for themselves, and who are not who they say they are? Life in Weimar, is it Weimar or Weimar? Berlin comes to a terrifying precipice on May Day, 1929. Oh, I'm looking forward to this. You can find it on Amazon, the same with Liam Livings, or you can find it through baxterjardinelimited.com. baxterjardine.com. baxterjardine.com. So, something else I'm looking forward to getting on with, a series I'm looking forward to returning to. And that's what I was talking about the other day, wasn't it? Series that we return to over the years and watch the arc and the fortunes of those characters change through the years alongside us. Right, now, reading. What have I been up to? I finished this weekend, I read Raising Hair by Khloe Dalton, which I bought on our day out in Cheshire midweek, having read the beginning on Kindle, having seen the book in a shop being pushed because it was shortlisted for the Women's Prize non-fiction, which was all announced last week. I do wonder, for years and years, for decades, I defended the feminist principle of women's prizes and in books particularly. And I did wonder, watching it all last week and looking at it, whether that's not all very outdated now with the prominence and the massive success of women writers and women in publishing. I wonder. It's worth debating. I think men find it harder, actually, to be taken, seriously? I think the same old men find it easy to be taken seriously, the same old kind of patriarchal guard, the same usual figures. But I do wonder what's happening with gender in publishing. Anyway, that's getting me off the subject of hairs. I absolutely loved this. It's very simple, really. It's about a woman who takes in a baby leveret and looks after it and worries that she's doing the wrong thing, taking this piece of wildness into her house in the country. Is she going to damage it by contaminating it with humanness? And she brings it up and feeds it and watches over it, and it eventually jumps over the garden wall, seemingly to disappear forever, but it's back, and it's in and out of her house, and she has a particular kind of bond. And then it turns up with its own young in a scene that's a bit like Born Free. Yes, Socks, talk about wildness coming in from the garden. Here he comes. I think that's Born Free, isn't it? When Elsa returns from the wilderness with her own cubs. Anyway, it's a really beautiful book. And the stuff that she's saying about the countryside and industrialized farming and the way that the British countryside has been denuded of variety and diversity of plant life and animal life and bird life. The terrible things we've done to it all in the name of asset stripping the countryside is really frightening and galling. And the descriptions of, finding harvested fields ripped apart by machinery and finding the corpses of creatures like hares ripped apart by the same unseeing, unfeeling machinery. Come and see, everyone. You're being missed out, aren't you? I got shouted at this morning when I started work before he was back in the house. He couldn't believe I was typing on my laptop without him on my lappy lap as well. Come on. Lappy lap. People are hearing my cat language. There's Socks. So I'd thoroughly recommend this. I think it's a smashing book. I think it's beautifully written. And then I read a chunk of Hannah the Complete Story. Now, this is a legendary figure from my childhood, really. We had these books, but Hannah Hawkswell, the woman who lived near Bishop Auckland in the Dales, the Pennines, on a farm with no electricity and lived in rags and looked after animals and was found by Yorkshire TV in the 70s. And they made documentaries about her life, her harsh life, and the way she spoke like somebody out of the 19th century. She was rather genteel in her poverty and her northernness. She has a face and a way about her that's kind of weirdly familiar to me. I must have met old people in the Northeast when I was a kid who were like her. I think we lived partly cheek by jowl with the past in the Northeast in a way that other places perhaps didn't at that point. Anyway, this is quite a nice book. It's written by, I think, the producer of the TV show. It's slightly fusty in the writing. It's a bit of an old fart writing, really. And it's best when we get the unimpeded stories of Hannah Hawkswell, when they kind of distill her own words into her stories. Her tales of almost being courted by young men at the dance are really heartbreaking, because she spent her whole life alone and never had a fella of any kind. And eventually she gets to go to Buckingham Palace when she becomes famous on the TV, and she goes to Venice and they make a documentary about her various travels around the world when the books come out and the TV shows come out. But it's worth a look. It's a really interesting tale. She was kind of the last of her kind, really. Anyway, so I dipped into that rather than being completely absorbed in it, because then I turned to Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. We're told on the front it's a multi-million copy best-selling novel. It's That Octopus Book, which is the name that most people know it by. It's our book club book this month. Penny chose it. And I've had it knocking around for ages, and this is just the right time to read it with book club coming up. About 50 pages in, and I really love it. It's just the level of absurdity and everydayness that I love, with monologues from the octopus in captivity in a rather dingy aquarium centre, a rather dingy zoo, speaking to us straight from his captivity, believably, and then escaping every night and eating other edible creatures in the aquarium, and nipping back in time because he can only be out of water for 18 minutes, and he can squeeze through tiny gaps like we've seen on documentaries about octopi. And then outside of that, we're meeting people like the woman who cleans the floor and the tanks in the aquarium, and learning about her and various people around her, this kind of interconnected web of characters. Again, all living slightly sad lives and complicated lives. And again, that's the kind of thing I love, the banality of everyday misery set against fantasy. That's absolutely my jam, as the young people say nowadays. So I'll see how I get on. I'm going to plunge back into reading this afternoon, because it's a bit sultry and sticky and grey this afternoon. I don't fancy going out anywhere. I'm going to sit and watch those fat pigeons eating cherries off the tree in our garden right outside the window. And Socks likes watching that as well, because they make him crazy, don't they? And the squirrels, to him, it's all edible out there. But he's never going to catch them, are you? They're really fat pigeons, though. They're wood pigeons, so they make that wonderful noise. But they're quite vicious, pulling these cherries off the branches. I had it pointed out to me by Jeremy that we are responsible for that cherry tree, which is taller than the house. For the last 20 years, we accidentally seeded it or grew it from a sapling, apparently. I think it is from a cherry stone, but it's massive. I don't think it can be right. We can't have done that in 20 years. But it's quite impressive. Anyway, Socks is settled now, and I think that's all my bookish news that I can tell you. I think that's what I've had coming through the door, and that's what I've had going through my head and my book bag. And where are we? We're just over halfway through the month. So we've covered some quite good ground, really, I think, in reading. I think I've got a feeling that Raising Hare, as a kind of 5-star read, is joining my pile of the best books of the year so far. And actually, in 2 weeks' time, we'll be at the end of June. And I think I might do a mid-year best-of pile to show you what my favourites are so far. And hopefully, it'll be about 5, because then I can end up with a top 10 by the end of the year. Top 10 recommendations. Of course, there's always many more recommendations than that. Okay, goodbye everyone. Socks says goodbye as well, don't you, Socks? See, he's quiet now, contented. Shall I lift you up so you can see people? Goodbye everyone. See you soon.